Let's talk more about your diet. You touched on it there quickly. It sounds like it's pretty carnivore-ish. Take us through what you'd eat in a typical day. This will give us an idea of what low oxalate eating could look like.
Well, it doesn't necessarily give you a great idea because low oxalate eating can be vegan, it can be vegetarian, it can be pretty much anything. You can adopt and select low oxalate foods in and amongst any other kind of portal you want to use to define how you eat. The portal that I have to use is based on what my body is now tolerating. And this is a very common problem with those of us who have poisoned ourselves with healthy eating and have oxalate crystals and long-term oxalate toxicity has deranged our gut and immune system or whatever, and our ability to eat certain foods is out the window. So I have a restricted diet because I get tired and sick on simple things like onions and, like beef now and lamb, and I'm really limited. So I'm relying on foods that make me feel good. And that's my diet. And that happens to be for me most of the fishes. I eat a lot of tuna and sardines and other kinds of fish and shellfish. I eat a lot of pork, locally raised, delicious pork primarily, and use coconut and papaya and salt and lemons here and there, and lots of butter. Big fan of butter, but I don't do my raw milk and cream and don't have cheese. I think they would be perfect foods on a low oxalate diet for most people, but it doesn't seem to agree with me. And the way I know is because it turns on back facet pain. And once my back facet arthritis turns on, I don't do it because I'm trying to preserve my spine because I might need it for 3 more decades. So whatever turns on back pain, I'm not eating it.
You talked about the fact that the carnivore diet, eating meat, is a zero oxalate diet. Does that ever vary, though, if the animals are eating high oxalate foods? Does that ever get into the meat and then into us?
Not to appreciable amounts of oxalate, and for what testing there is. There isn't a lot of testing on seafood. We need more of it, but chances are not, especially with livestock that we're growing for food. We consume those animals when they're very young and they just haven't had enough years to accumulate oxalate. And a lot of the oxalate would be in the glands and the tendons and the bones and the kidneys, of which very few people eat. But I'm perfectly happy to eat kidney. I like kidney. And if I wasn't allergic to beef, I would eat them a lot. Sometimes I can get pork kidney. I can get kidneys from rabbits. But I wouldn't worry about animal foods being a source of oxalate. There's actually little traces, maybe even in dairy, which is surprising because of all that calcium. But the glands collect oxalate, the breasts collect oxalate. The breasts are a calcium concentrating tissue, and so oxalate tends to follow calcium around in the body. So that's probably why.
Given that our food supply has changed so much over the years through hybridization and we've made, a lot of the produce bigger and sweeter, do you have any knowledge of how oxalate content has changed as we've changed the foods?
Well, I wish there was more money for botanists to study this in light of a nutritional question like that. They're often studying it in terms of plant diseases and so on and what to do about the soil, because too much calcium and humidity will cause tomatoes to be bad because they'll fill up with oxalate crystals and that's harmful to them. So there's lots of other factors besides the breeding. Mostly we've been trying to breed plants to be less toxic because they're inherently toxic. Wild almonds will drop you dead. 15 wild almonds and you're dead of cyanide poisoning. Luckily there's been both natural genetic changes and lots of selection. We've done plant selecting so intensely for thousands of years. We've developed corn on the cob. We've developed lots of potatoes. We've developed the entire produce department. There was no such thing as an edible carrot until humans invented it. And these are all progress in terms of turning vegetation into not poisonous in a more acute way. But it's also evidence that if we had to invent these foods, that they can't possibly be essential to healthy reproduction and healthy life because humans were around a lot longer than the carrot, for example.
But in all fairness, we have changed the animals a lot too through breeding. I mean, our cow these days is
Well, yeah,
probably
I
not.
don't know how much they've bred most sardines and all of that, but that's very different. We've been able to eat animals. There isn't that many toxic animals. There's a toxic snail. There's venomous snakes. There's spiders and things that are very, poisonous to us. But generally, the mammal foods that we've lived on, like the woolly mammoth and the giant sloth and the caribou and the buffalo and the reindeer and all that we've been eating, whatever breeding we've done, like we've bred the dogs to do things for us, but we haven't bred them for food. We've bred them for function, help us hunt other food. And they like the lean meat. We like the bone marrow. So we've worked out a deal with the dogs where we can hunt together and everybody's happy. So, but we are breeding animals, and that's a nice thing. Because of livestock husbandry, we're improving diversity and using them for niches. Like we've done the dogs. There's such diversity with dogs. There's great diversity in animals that we use as livestock because we have an interest in them being able to survive in Canada versus Florida versus Peru in different conditions and for different purposes for their eggs or for their meat or whatever. So we definitely breed and select animals, but it's very different than turning a wild carrot, which is bitter and tough, like tougher than leather, it's not edible in any way, shape, or form. And yet from that progeny parent plant, we've created something that we eat in any soup. Carrots, like right the basic, we use it all the time now, but it didn't exist until we invented it.
No, I agree with the plant piece, but I also think there is a lot of that with animals when it comes to like pigs versus wild boars or
Oh, yeah.
cows, which a lot of the carnivores are basing their whole diet or a big proportion of their diet. I mean, I'm no expert on, how things have evolved and we've bred animals, but, I don't picture cows roaming North America for us to hunt thousands of years ago. So I think, even in the meat realm, it's changed a lot the way we eat and both
Certainly you
realms.
see that in pork and chicken. Like grocery store pork is dry and tasteless. They call it the white meat because they bred it to be lower in fat and have no flavor and be tough and dry. But the more wild breeds are delicious, dark and pink and brown and, for sure very different. The chicken breast, this massive thing, didn't exist until we bred. Yeah.
If you enjoyed that clip, press here for the full episode. I'll see you over there.
People are literally buying these massive clamshell boxes of spinach and using half pound or more of spinach every day. That is really toxic. I was looking back at this thing that I really love. I wanted to share this with you.